I thought it would be interesting to organize a list of ways to troll. And if this sort of thing was just done by an occasional YouTuber that wasn't too bright or something, then it wouldn't be worth mentioning. But when I come across many YouTube videos put out by experts in the field that say something that's just very wrong, and then it's backed up by AI on Google, then I think it's just interesting to organize all these thoughts and different ways to troll. I'm sure there's more ways, but this is just what I could think of off the top of my head. So I just sit here with the trolling videos. They are strangely organized and of one mind or of one like mind, meaning that a lot of people are giving the same false information. So one way to troll, you can use false logic, boy-girl paradox. Every expert mathematician I came across on YouTube used false logic to state that if a woman gave birth to a male, she had a decreased probability of giving birth to another male. You can see my video on the details for that. I broke it down and made it real easy and simple, I think. But all the experts were giving the same false information, which was very unusual. Another way to troll is to imply wrong information. Some videos would just state this, others would strongly imply it, that centripetal force does not need a counterforce. Thus, Newton's third law does not hold true. So it was weird to see a lot of purported experts giving the same false information. Also, it's good to recognize when somebody is intentionally misleading you, even if they don't outright lie. There's a saying that good liars rarely lie, the best liars never lie, because they can just obfuscate or give half-truths or not give all the information. Another thing I've seen quite a bit, sometimes people just act really dumb. One sort of famous story was somebody that went to a convenience store and bought a nitrous energy drink and dumped it into their gas tank and could not figure out why the engine wouldn't start. But more commonly, I've seen people pretend they think that the earth is flat, and they just ignore anything that contradicts that, ignore any contradictory facts. I don't think anyone could argue that anyone's actually that dumb, but a lot of people really state it emphatically and pretend that they think the earth is flat. It's strange that so many people would do that at once. Another way to troll, act really angry or inflammatory. I could have thrown in there that you could also intimidate or something. Next up, with the physics videos, I should have added not just implying false information, you could also obfuscate by drawing really complicated diagrams. You can see my video on banked curve if you like. But I saw some physics videos from people that were supposed experts. They just fill the page full of triangles, and then they just jump from triangle to triangle and angle to angle. And while each individual fact may have been true, it was definitely obfuscated because it was just a hodgepodge of random information. You could call this the Sheldon Cooper method of teaching, because on The Big Bang Theory, he was supposed to teach someone else in his class, and Sheldon did everything he could to make it as complicated and confusing as possible. Unfortunately, a lot of the educational videos I've seen on the internet, especially in the field of physics, follow the Sheldon Cooper method of teaching. Next up, for an interesting prank, you could get a very large number of people to say something that is obviously wrong or just really stupid, but have them act certain that it is true and even have it backed up with AI. And that statement could be that there is no difference between male and female. So for this to work, to say there's no difference between men and women or male and female mammals, reptiles, or whatever, you will have to ignore a large amount of contradictory information, and they all do that, at least everybody that makes this claim. So for example, if biologists or zoologists or whatever want to repopulate a region of a forest with a certain type of animal, or repopulate a zoo, do like a breeding program, male and female obviously matter. This would also indicate that a male no longer needs to worry about prostate cancer if he believes he's a female, and instead his insurance company needs to pay for contraception and cervical cancer screening. So nobody would ever be stupid enough to believe that, but a large number of people are pretending to do so. In addition, you have the secondary sex characteristics. Males are taller, larger, have more muscle, less fat. So people have known the difference between male and female since prehistory. And people have always known that the reason men go off to battle is because they're stronger and faster and larger. And women have babies because they can have babies. So something has caused a large number of people to ignore all that information. and act like they are dumber than small children. This is actually not controversial in any doctor's office or insurance company, but the internet and AI would say that this is actually very controversial, which is weird. No doctor or insurance company or biologist or zoologist would ever pretend that an animal can switch gender. But YouTube and the internet, it's like an alternate universe. But there are apparently thousands of people that are pretending that they believe that it's true. And these aren't just random people giving this information. I actually saw this on purportedly legitimate science channels. So what would cause people, after thousands of years and knowing the difference between men and women, what would suddenly cause people to flip a switch and suddenly say that there is no difference? And not just a few people, but hundreds or thousands of people. That's interesting to think about what flipped that switch, or who flipped that switch. For a couple of weeks or so, I kept coming across information that foxes were part of the feline family instead of the canine family, meaning they were actually cats and not dogs. But for a couple of weeks or so, the entire internet was scrubbed of any information about foxes. This included Wikipedia and every website I could come across on Google. There was no information about foxes or their families, that they were canines and not felines. So that appeared to be some sort of a prank that somebody initially tried, but it didn't work out. So at any rate, this is why I do some of my videos, because I'll try to learn things on the internet. I can't find any information on it, so I have to figure it out for myself. My videos tend to be in the math or physics categories. So it's important to remember that many wells of knowledge have been tainted, so we do need to be cautious about from which wells we drink.